touchdown. It's through 50. He's got the speed. Touchdown.
Welcome into the latest episode of Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara, joined by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Mosley. We are here to preview Oregon's matchup against Utah, the number 18 Utes, coming to Autzen Stadium to take on the number 13 Oregon Ducks. Oregon, one of just 4 teams in the current top 25 that will be playing their second-ranked opponent this early in the season. And not only is it a ranked opponent, but it's the start of conference play. I sense a little bit more, I don't want to say urgency, but maybe excitement, a little bit more of a bounce out of the guys at practice throughout the week.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to prove, and I think guys know that. I mean, one, you're going into conference play, you're facing a tough team in Utah that you know is going to be salty after the way last season's game went. But also, this is a team in Oregon that's got some questions of its own to answer in terms of, tackling better defensively on offense, scoring touchdowns instead of field goals, particularly early in the game, as opposed to the Georgia State game. So, still a lot to find out, and so, you'd like to see some urgency from guys.
Well, this early in the season, 3 weeks in, it sounds early, but it's a quarter of the season already in the books. The Ducks are last in total defense in the Pac-12. They're last in passing defense. If you're Utah, you have to obviously take note of that.
Right.
But their strength is Devontae Booker. And whether it's running the ball or catching the ball, he accounts for almost 50% of their yards rushing and receiving. He was a handful last year. He had over 100 yards receiving against Oregon last year. J.J. Jones mirrored him a lot in practice this week on the scout team. He clearly is going to be, have the attention of the Oregon defense, a defense that has some other things to work on as well and figure out as we get into conference play.
Yeah, they did a great job of really stretching the field horizontally against Oregon last year and getting him into open space on screens and out into favorable matchups against defensive backs. And, with the way Oregon's secondary has been tackling, you have to think that that's, probably a strategy they'll try to exploit again. If he's running the ball, taking the ball on a handoff, what have you, Oregon's front seven can be involved, and that's a position of strength. Those guys have been playing pretty well. But, the big plays have just been killing this team. Letting 5-yard receptions turn into 50-yard receptions. There's only a handful of teams that have given up multiple 70-yard plays, multiple 60-yard plays around the country this year, but Oregon has, and it's usually been some poor tackling. So, the secondary really needs to lock things down in that area going forward.
Utah has a reputation for always playing really hard. Kyle Whittingham's their head coach, hasn't missed a workout in seven years, evidently, according to the drive show on Pac-12 Network the other day. He's got that jaw. He looks like the type of coach that probably straps it on in practice if he has to demonstrate. So they're going to come in. They're certainly not going to be intimidated by the Autzen Stadium crowd. If you're Oregon, however, though, you're glad this game is at home.
Yeah, and school's coming up, so the student section should be as rowdy as ever. Utah plays in a really tough environment, and if that game had been 14-0 Utah last year, playing in that environment, it would have ended differently, I think. So, Oregon wants to turn the tables in its own favor in that regard. Take advantage of your home field, start quick, put the opponent in an early deficit, and Mark Helfrich talks all the time about how valuable a 2-touchdown lead is, and Utah almost benefited from that last year, didn't? I mean, that Joe Walker fumble return, obviously just a huge momentum-changing play in that game and for the course of Oregon's season.
Well, on the positive side for the Ducks, as we switch over to offense for Oregon, top 10 again in total offense, top 10 in rushing offense. They've been able to move the ball. You did mention last week anyway, having a little bit of difficulty punching it into the end zone, having to settle for some field goals. That also has a positive effect on the kicking game. Certainly, Aiden Schneider leads the Pac-12 in scoring. Has really, just been a very dependable guy for the Ducks and got a lot of early season experience that, they don't want to necessarily have him kicking 4 field goals a game with this type of offense, but it's certainly a good sign. You talked to him earlier in the week, a guy that was a walk-on that now is an asset for this team.
It's amazing how just unflappable he is. I mean, his resting heart rate, I imagine, is like in the teens or something, because he's just totally cool all the time. I asked him because he made a field goal in a rush situation at the end of the first half last week, and when the Ducks practiced that the previous Friday, I mean, it helps that they practice it every week. That helped, but he actually had missed that kick. And I said, so what, was that on your mind? And he's like, no, kind of the key is you don't really care that much if you make it or miss it. And I think he realized how strange that sounded. He's like, well, I mean, you want to make them, but you got to flush it, But that was his way of putting it, You just, whether you make it or miss it, you just don't really care that much. And it's a strange way to verbalize it, but it just shows how just cool he is all the time, and he doesn't let things get to him. He made some big kicks in road environments last season, and just really turned out to be an asset kind of out of nowhere for this team.
Well, he made the kick today in his Fast Friday, so hopefully that's not a bad thing.
Right.
I think it was from 45 yards too. He just drilled it. So that's been a real positive for Oregon. The running game, once again, even without Thomas Tyner, which added a little bit of intrigue, I guess, to the position group heading into the season. Royce Freeman leads all running backs with 17 rushes already of 10 or more yards. And why that's such a big deal, not only does he lead the country in that statistic, he's only run the ball 55 times through 3 games, which for a featured, for the number 1 running back on your team, that's not a whole lot. So he's getting big gains. That's going to be something that the Utah defense has to worry about. And I think we'll see plenty of Royce early and often tomorrow.
Yeah, particularly, where things go for Oregon at quarterback, how Vernon Adams is doing, if he's able to go, if Jeff Lockie's in there, keeping the pressure off him, such it is. I mean, handing the ball to Royce is never a bad thing, regardless of the situation. But yeah, when like a third of your carries are going for, at 10 yards and a first down, that's pretty good. So this is a Utah defensive front with a well-deserved reputation for being tough. But you like Royce's chances against just about anybody, as I'm sure the Utes do with their back.
Game 4 on the season for Oregon. The offensive line for the Ducks last year was well documented. Tons of injuries early, different lineup combinations. Cameron Hunt was out last week with an illness. He'll be back this week, so the offensive line is intact, and that's also something that Oregon, I think, can really benefit from, having just that familiarity with the running game. Whether it's Vernon Adams or Jeff Lockie, as you mentioned, Vernon Adams is getting more comfortable. He's been here now over a whole month, so you have to figure he's starting to really understand the offense and
we're seeing him coach up guys more now than he did 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, he was the first few weeks. You could tell. I mean, he was trying to soak everything in, and even today out at walkthrough, he pulled one of his players aside after a play, and it appeared to be a successfully executed play, but just there was some nuance about it that he wanted to either emphasize or remind his teammate, hey, this is what we're looking to do here. So that great leadership. He's had an amazing success rate against Pac-12 teams. He's only played 2 games in his career.
Small sample size.
Yeah, very small sample size. But when you look at the stats behind it, he played against Oregon State as a member of Eastern Washington, played against the University of Washington. In those 2 games, he accounted for over 1,000 yards of total offense. That's over 500 per game average.
Is that good?
And 13 touchdowns. So for whatever reason, this guy likes Pac-12 play. If he's able to go tomorrow for the Ducks, confidence isn't going to be an issue.
And we talked about this a little going into the Michigan State game. He's a guy who likes a big stage, does not shy away from the spotlight, I think, is attracted to it. And so, when he gets these opportunities to perform, he's going to try to take full advantage of them. And he showed, too, that kind of like we were talking with Aiden Schneider, he's not fazed by the big stage, too. He can perform on it. So, when it happens, really looking forward to seeing him take on this level of competition on a consistent basis and seeing, just how much of that kind of production he can carry over and maintain momentum with.
The other part of the game, special teams, this is an area that both of these teams really excel in and have been able to use to their advantage already this season. The Ducks and the Utes both have a couple of defensive touchdowns early in the season. Utah had 2 kick returns, actually a kick return and a punt return for touchdowns last week against Fresno State, a road game for them. So this is, that's always, when you're looking at keys to the game, especially in a matchup that on paper looks pretty close, oftentimes the special teams can differentiate that or swing it one way or the other. I don't think that's really the case in this particular game because both teams are so sound in that area.
Yeah, but if somebody has a breakdown, the other group can exploit it. That can be a game changer. And it's weird to say, but keep your eye on their punter, Tom Hackett. He's a really, really talented punter, and he has sort of a unique style for what you're used to seeing if you watch guys punt. He really likes he's Australian, so he's got a background in Aussie rules football and really likes to roll out. He can roll out to his left or his right, and then does this drop kick style, and he can angle it to either side of the field. So by the time he's done rolling out, and then probably force the returner to go retrieve the ball from the other side of the field wherever he had been standing, the coverage team is down there, and so to get a good return against that guy would really be something. So that would just be make a long punt return for the Ducks an even bigger deal, because that's a tough guy to do it against.
And he's also athletic. He's not a real big guy, but he's fearless, and he's not afraid to take off with the ball either. Already this season, he's got a 74-yard punt that came against Michigan. Last week he had a couple inside the 10. They keep inside the 20 as like an official stat for punters. He's got 30-something inside the 10 punts in his career at Utah. So a dangerous weapon. I think the Ducks will be happy to field punts.
Right.
If they can make him punt 10 times, that's great. But he can flip the field, much like we saw Michigan State able to do against this team a couple weeks ago.
I think another stat for him: one broken heart. Didn't he break Johnny Lloyd's heart last year?
That's right.
It looked like Johnny was going to take one all the way back, and the last guy to get him, little ankle tackle, and kept him off the scoreboard.
Actually, Rob and I had a chance to talk to Tom Hackett at the College Football Awards last year, and I asked him about that play, and I kind of congratulated him. The way to go, tackle him, and he's just like, he ran right at me, and he threw in a couple of very colorful words as well. But
he had to make a play. I mean,
he did have to make a play, and he made it. Jake Ford on Oregon's side of the ball, also an Aussie, former Aussie football player. He sort of played the role as Tom Hackett this week. Did a really nice job too, and did some things that you're looking at like, wow, well maybe Oregon should incorporate some of this rugby style stuff into their own repertoire. But the Ducks will not be surprised by anything they see, but they still have to worry about a very good player in Tom Hackett on special teams. At this point, we probably won't know until tomorrow who's going to start for the Utes, whether it's Travis Wilson or Kendall Thompson. Both players saw action last year against Oregon. I think regardless, if Wilson's healthy enough to play at all, I think we'll see both of them at some point tomorrow. They have a different kind of skill set. Wilson is a little bit more of the conventional quarterback. Thompson will run it a little bit more. He played last week at Fresno State. Didn't throw for a ton of yards, but was able to lead an offense and help the Utes to a big road win there. So the Ducks, I think, they're going to prepare for both guys. We'll see how that goes. Wilson is a quarterback that, while he's big in stature, his stats don't jump off the page at you. He doesn't. He likes to throw a lot of stuff underneath, and that's been an issue for the Oregon defense early, especially against Eastern Washington, where those short passes turned into long gains. Maybe not as much last week against Georgia State.
Yeah, again, you got to tackle. Utah doesn't have a big home run threat like Clay like they had last year, but right now the Ducks are making a lot of guys look like home run threats by not being able to wrap up, by again letting kind of 5-10 yard gains turned into 50-yard gains. So that's just going to be a huge key, because this Utah team's probably not going to try to attack them deep down the field. So if there's big pass plays, the Ducks probably will have no one to blame but themselves. But Mark Helfrich has, whenever he's asked about the quarterbacks this week, has come back to Booker, the running back, and I don't think that's lip service. I mean, Wilson and Thompson are good players, but there's going to be better quarterbacks you're going to have to go against probably in the conference. That Booker's really the guy that has got to be the focus, and any defensive coordinator wants to start things, base everything around stopping the run, and so the Ducks they really want to contain Booker, and if you're going to get beat by one of these quarterbacks, you'd rather have that happen than the running back, because he's a guy who will be the focus of the attention.
Another chance for the young secondary to continue to improve and get better. Ugo Amadi started last week, a true freshman. He'll certainly see plenty of time tomorrow. I think we'll see a little bit more of Johnny Reagan too, a linebacker, an inside linebacker that maybe gives the Ducks a little bit more speed, which could be certainly something you want when you have a guy like Booker on the other side.
Yeah, you know, I didn't break it down play by play. I don't know if it was a coaching thing, personnel-wise, or if the linebackers were that much better. But I felt like the inside linebackers in particular, Hardrick, Walker, Reagan, had some struggles against the pass in the Eastern Washington game that didn't show up as much against Georgia State. So, you know, I think that's potentially a sign of progress there, that those guys are handling that better. Reagan is certainly a guy that can cover, you know, has played outside linebacker, has done a really athletic guy, moves around, you know, better than a Hardrick or a Walker back there. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to watch all the personnel groupings, because John Neal has said, he's been emphatic, he wants to play Glenn Iheanacho more, he wants to play Juwan Williams more, he wants to try to get Paris Bostic in there a little bit. Ty Griffin as well, after he got his feet wet a little bit last week. So, you know, he needs to push some different buttons to get the secondary really clicking, and it sounds like he's willing to try pushing a lot of different ones in terms of personnel groupings to figure some things out.
Well, this should be a really entertaining game to watch. Hopefully, for Oregon fans and the Ducks, it's a victory and a way to start off the conference season. The kickoff is 5:45 Pacific time tomorrow. It's on Fox, a national broadcast. The following week, also a national TV game. It's been announced, Colorado. That's a road game for Oregon. It will air at 7 o'clock on ESPN, nationally Pacific time. That's an 8 o'clock local time kick in Boulder, Colorado. Rob and I will be back early next week to talk a little bit about what happened between the Ducks and the Utes. Second, actually, top 25 matchup already this season for the Oregon Ducks. In the meantime, any specific questions we can answer for you either on Mac and Mose or online, we're happy to do so. You can get to us on Twitter. I am at McNamara UO. He is at Duck Football. Until next time, we'll see you.
Gets the corner into the end zone for the touchdown. It's through 50. He's got the speed. Touchdown.